I spent 2 months restoring my dad's old guitar for his 60th birthday. But the next morning I found out that the guitar was in the trash. Instead, his Facebook was buzzing with posts about the gift from my sister. I didn't make a scene. I just didn't come anymore. I need to read the front-end design skill first since this will be a long-form text content piece. Let me think about this carefully. The user wants a story broken into 3 parts, sent one at a time. This is a text/script output, not a file or artifact. It's conversational storytelling content. I'll write part 1 directly. Let me craft the story based on the prompt. Main character needs a unique name, not Vanessa. Father favors younger sister. MC restored dad's old guitar for his 60th birthday. Guitar ended up in trash. Sister's gift, Rolex, got all the Facebook praise. MV stops visiting sister's. Life goes badly eventually. Moral: beauty in simplicity, kindness wins. Parallel support character needed. Set in the USA 3 parts total. Good ending. About family love. Part 1. My dad used to say that his old Gibson was worth more than his first car. He said it with this goofy grin, strumming a chord that buzzed because 2 strings were shot and the neck had a crack running down it like a lightning bolt. I grew up falling asleep to that sound. So when I found out his 60th birthday was coming up, I knew exactly what I was going to do. And honestly, if someone had told me that 2 months of my life, my savings, and a piece of my heart would end up sitting in a trash can on a Tuesday morning, I probably still would have done it. Because that's the kind of fool I am. My name is Darcy, and this is what happened when I loved my father more than he was ready to love me back. So let me set the stage. I'm 31, I live in Columbus, Ohio. I work as a vet tech, which means I make enough to keep my lights on and occasionally treat myself to something that isn't ramen. My younger sister, Brooke, she's 26, lives in Chicago, works in pharmaceutical sales. And if you're wondering what pharmaceutical sales money looks like compared to vet tech money, yeah, you already know. Brooke drives a white Audi. I drive a 2014 Honda Civic with a check engine light that I've been monitoring for about 8 months. But here's the thing, I never cared about that. Not really. Because I always thought family wasn't about what you could buy. It was about what you were willing to give. My dad, Gerald, he's a retired electrician. My mom, Nancy, passed away when I was 19 and Brooke was 14. After that, something shifted in my dad. He became quieter, more distant. And over the years, I noticed something that I kept brushing off, kept excusing, kept swallowing down like cold medicine. He just lit up differently for Brooke. When I'd visit on Sundays and bring him homemade pot roast, he'd say, "Thanks, Darcy, leave it on the counter." When Brooke would FaceTime him from some rooftop bar in Chicago, he'd laugh so loud I could hear it from the kitchen. I told myself it was because Brooke reminded him of Mom. Same eyes, same laugh. I look more like his side. More plain. More quiet. More invisible apparently. But I kept showing up. Every Sunday. Pot roast, mowed his lawn, fixed his leaky bathroom faucet because he kept forgetting to call a plumber. I even organized his pill bottles into one of those weekly containers after his blood pressure scare last March. And then one evening in late January I was cleaning out the hall closet at his house, because of course I was, and I found it. The Gibson. Dusty, cracked, missing strings, tucked behind old coats and a box of Christmas lights that hadn't worked since 2016. I held it and something just clicked. Dad's 60th was in April. I was going to bring this guitar back to life. Now, do I know how to restore a guitar? Absolutely not. But do I know how to watch 1100 YouTube videos and bother every luthier within a 90-mile radius? You bet I do. I took that guitar home wrapped in a towel like it was a newborn. My cousin Hattie, she's my mom's niece, lives about 20 minutes from me. She came over and saw me hunched over this thing at my kitchen table with wood glue and sandpaper, and she said, "Darcy, you look like a surgeon performing open-heart surgery on a piece of firewood." And honestly, that's exactly what it felt like. Hattie became my whole support system through this. She helped me find a guy named Reggie who ran a small guitar repair shop out of his garage in Westerville. Reggie took one look at the Gibson and said, "Whoever left this in a closet should be arrested." I liked Reggie immediately. He taught me how to fix the crack in the neck using a special clamp and tight bond glue. He showed me how to replace the tuning pegs. I learned what fret leveling was. I spent weekends sanding, polishing, conditioning the wood. I ordered original spec strings online. I even tracked down a replacement pickguard from a vintage parts dealer in Tennessee. And let me tell you, that woman charged me like I was buying a small house. All in all, I spent close to $900 over 2 months. That's a lot for someone who rations her shampoo. But every time I looked at that guitar coming back together, I thought about my dad's face. I pictured him holding it, strumming that first chord, and maybe, just maybe, looking at me the way he looks at Brooke. Not because of the gift, but because he'd see how much thought went into it. Hattie would come over on Wednesday nights and we'd work on it together. She'd hold pieces while I glued, or she'd hand me tools like a surgical assistant. One night she looked at me and said, "You know, he might not react the way you're hoping." And I said, I know. But I'm not doing this for a reaction. I'm doing it because it's him. And I meant that. At least I thought I did. The week before his birthday, I gave the guitar one final coat of polish. I sat it in a hard case I found at a second-hand shop, lined the inside with blue velvet fabric that I hand-cut myself. I wrote a card. Nothing fancy. Just, Dad, I found your Gibson in the closet. I spent the last 2 months bringing it back because the music shouldn't stop. Happy 60th. Love, Darcy. Hattie took a photo of me holding it and said, "You look so proud." And I was. I genuinely was. Saturday, April 12th. The birthday. I drove 40 minutes to Dad's house in Newark. Brooke had flown in from Chicago the night before. When I walked in, Brooke was already there in the living room with this giant gift bag with tissue paper exploding out of it like a parade float. She looked amazing, obviously. Full hair, nails done, wearing this cream-colored blazer like she was about to close a merger. I had on jeans and my good flannel. My good flannel. Think about that for a second. There were a few other people there. Dad's buddy from his electrician days, a neighbor named Phil, my aunt on Dad's side, Lorraine. Small gathering. Nothing huge. Dad was in a good mood. Grilling burgers in the backyard like a king. After we ate, it was gift time. Brooke went first. Because of course she did. She handed my dad the bag and said, "Daddy, I wanted to get you something that says, you've made it." He opened it. And I watched his face completely transform. His eyes went wide. His mouth literally dropped open. It was a Rolex. Rolex. Silver, heavy, gleaming under the porch light like something out of a magazine. The whole room erupted. Phil was clapping. Aunt Lorraine was saying, "Oh my lord." My dad, my quiet pot roast on the counter dad, he stood up, hugged Brooke so tight he lifted her off the ground and said, "Baby girl, this is the greatest gift anyone has ever given me." And I was standing right there, holding a guitar case, watching. Hattie, who had come with me, squeezed my hand. I could feel her looking at me, but I didn't look back because I knew if I did I'd fall apart. When the noise died down, I stepped forward. I said, "Hey Dad, I got you something too." I was smiling. I was trying so hard. I opened the case and showed him the Gibson. I told him I found it in his closet. I told him about the 2 months, the luthier in Westerville, the new strings, the vintage pickguard from Tennessee. And my dad looked at it, nodded and said, "Oh wow. That old thing. Thanks, Stars." That was it. Thanks, Stars. Like I'd handed him a gas station gift card. Then he put the Rolex on and asked Brooke to take a photo of him wearing it. Brooke pulled out her phone, and they posed together like they were on the cover of a magazine. I closed the guitar case. Hattie helped me carry it back inside. We put it on the dining room table and nobody touched it for the rest of the night. I drove home in silence. Hattie sat next to me and didn't say a word for 20 minutes, and I was grateful for that. Then finally she said, "You know what you did was beautiful, right?" And I said, "Yeah. I just wish somebody else thought so too." I didn't sleep that night. I just lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying his face. Not when he saw my gift, when he saw Brooke's. That lift. That light. I've been chasing that light my whole life. The next morning I made coffee and did what I always do when I can't sleep. I scrolled Facebook. And there was. My dad had posted a photo of himself wearing the Rolex. The caption said, 60 years young and my baby girl got me looking like $1,000,000. Best daughter a man could ask for. 243 likes. 58 comments. Heart emojis everywhere. Brooke commented, "You deserve the world, Daddy," with a crown emoji. And he replied, "Hi, Princess." There was no mention of the guitar. Not one word. Not a photo. Not a thank you. I sat there with my coffee getting cold in my hand, reading that caption over and over. Best daughter a man could ask for. Singular. Daughter. Not daughters. Daughter. I called Hattie. She picked up on the first ring like she'd been waiting. I read her the post. She was quiet for a long time and then said, "What are you going to do?" And I said, "I think I'm done, Hattie. I think I'm just done." But I wasn't even close to done yet. Because what I found out next made everything 10 times worse. And I'll tell you about that very soon, because what happened to that guitar is something I will never, ever forget. So after I saw that Facebook post, I did something I almost never do. I stayed home on Sunday. No pot roast. No driving to Newark. No mowing his lawn. No fixing whatever was broken that week. I just sat on my couch with my cat Peanut and did nothing. And you know what's funny? Nobody called. Not my dad. Not Brooke. Not even Aunt Lorraine, who usually texts me every Sunday to ask if I made cornbread. The silence was so loud it was deafening. Hattie came over that afternoon with a bag of tacos and said, "Okay, you're not allowed to be sad while eating tacos. It's scientifically impossible." And she's wrong, by the way. You absolutely can be sad while eating tacos. I proved it. But Hattie, bless that woman, she kept checking on me all week. Texting me stupid memes, calling me on her lunch break, showing up with snacks like she was running a one-woman crisis intervention team powered entirely by carbohydrates. By Wednesday I was starting to make peace with it. I told myself, okay Darcy, your dad is who he is. He likes shiny things. Brooke gave him a shiny thing. The guitar wasn't shiny enough. It's not personal. Except it was completely personal, but I was trying really hard to lie to myself. Then Thursday happened. I was on my lunch break at the clinic eating a sad little sandwich in the break room when I got a text from Brooke. And I want you to picture this, because Brooke almost never texts me. Like, we text on birthdays and Thanksgiving logistics, and that's basically the full range of our sisterly communication. The text said, "Hey, did you leave some old guitar at Dad's?" I stared at it. Some old guitar. Some old guitar. Like I'd left behind an umbrella. I typed back, that was his birthday gift from me. I restored it. It was his old Gibson. 3 dots appeared. Then disappeared. Then appeared again. Then she replied, oh, I didn't know. Dad put it in the garage, I think. The garage. My 2 months, my $900, my blistered fingers, my blue velvet case lining. In the garage. With the lawn mower and the paint cans and the spiders. I didn't respond. I couldn't. My hands were shaking and I had a Labrador waiting for his vaccines in room 3, so I shoved my phone in my pocket and went back to work. Because that's what I do. I just keep going. That night, Hattie called and I told her about the text. She got so quiet I thought the call dropped. Then she said very calmly, Darcy, I need you to not go over there right now. Which tells you that Hattie knows me well enough to know my first impulse was absolutely to drive over there. But I didn't. I stayed put. I fed Peanut. I watched 2 episodes of a baking show where someone's cake collapsed and I thought, yeah buddy, I understand. Friday morning. I'm getting ready for work and my phone rings. It's Phil, my dad's neighbor. Phil and I have this weird little friendship because I once helped him carry a couch up his porch steps and he's been loyal to me ever since. Phil doesn't do small talk, so when he calls, something's up. He said, Darcy, I don't want to upset you, but I think you should know something. My stomach dropped. He told me that he'd been taking his trash out that morning and he saw something sitting next to my dad's bins on the curb. A guitar case. With a guitar inside it. Set out for garbage pickup. I didn't say anything for probably 10 seconds. Phil said, Darcy? You still there? And I said, yeah. Yeah, I'm here. He said, I grabbed it. It's on my porch. I didn't know if it meant something to you, but it looked too nice to throw away. Too nice to throw away. But not too nice for my dad to toss like a broken blender. I called in sick to work. First time in 3 years. Drove to Newark. Pulled up to Phil's house. And there it was on his porch. The Gibson still in the case. I'd lined myself sitting on a folding chair like it was waiting for me to come get it. I sat on Phil's porch steps and I cried. Not the quiet, dignified kind of crying. The ugly kind. The kind where your nose runs and you make sounds you didn't know you could make. Phil went inside and came back with a glass of water and a paper towel and said, for what it's worth, that's a beautiful guitar. And I just nodded because I couldn't talk. I put the guitar in my car. I looked over at my dad's house just 2 doors down, and every part of me wanted to march over there and say something. Ask him why. Make him explain. But I didn't. Because I suddenly understood something. He didn't throw away a guitar. He threw away me. Everything I'd put into it. My time, my love, my hope, and he set it on the curb like it was nothing. I drove home. I put the guitar in my closet. And I made a decision. I was done. Not in an angry, dramatic, slamming doors kind of way. Just done. Quietly done. The kind of done that's scarier than yelling because it means something inside you has actually shifted. I stopped going to Sunday dinners. I stopped calling. I stopped texting. I didn't post anything online, didn't make any announcements. I just became a ghost. The first Sunday, nothing. No call, no text. Second Sunday, my dad texted, you coming by? I replied, busy. That was it. Third Sunday, he didn't text at all. Hattie was the only person who knew the full story at that point. She told me I was doing the right thing, but she also said, just make sure you're doing this for you and not to punish him. And that hit me because honestly, at first I wasn't sure which one it was. But as the weeks went on, something strange started happening. I started having all this time. Sundays were suddenly mine. I wasn't driving 40 minutes each way. I wasn't grocery shopping for his fridge, wasn't cleaning his gutters, wasn't being the unpaid everything for a man who couldn't even keep my gift out of the trash. I started taking walks. I joined a beginner's pottery class because Hattie dragged me to it and because, in her words, you need to smash clay with your hands. It's therapeutic. She wasn't wrong. I made the ugliest bowl you've ever seen and I loved it. I started putting money into savings instead of spending it on someone who didn't notice. I painted my bathroom. I adopted a second cat. His name is Dumpling and he has exactly one brain cell but he's perfect. And slowly, quietly my life started opening up in ways I didn't expect. Meanwhile, and I didn't know this at the time, Hattie filled me in later. Things at Brooks End were starting to unravel. The pharmaceutical company she worked for went through a massive restructuring. Brooks' division got hit hard. Her sales territory got cut in half, then a quarter. Her income, which had been this big flashy number that funded Rolexes and rooftop bars, started shrinking fast. She had to give up her apartment in Lincoln Park and move to a smaller place in the suburbs. The Audi got traded in for a lease she could barely keep up with. I didn't feel good about it. I want to be honest about that. Some people hear a story like this and expect me to say, good, she deserved it. But that's not who I am. She's still my sister. I didn't want her to struggle. I just wanted to matter. But here's where it gets interesting. Because as Brooke's life got harder, she started calling Dad more. Needing things. Asking for money. And my dad, who had spent the last decade basking in Brooke's glamour and generosity, suddenly realized something he probably should have realized a long time ago. Brooke loved him when it was easy. I loved him when it was hard. The calls from Dad started coming in around late June. First it was casual. Hey Darce, haven't heard from you in a while. I was polite. Short. Been busy, Dad. Hope you're doing well. Then they got more frequent. More specific. The kitchen faucet's leaking again. The lawn looks rough. Phil said you haven't been by. And each time I said some version of the same thing. I'm sure Brooke can help. Was that petty? Maybe a little. But I had earned a little petty. I had earned a whole shopping cart full of petty. Hattie, who had zero patience for the situation, said, he's only calling because his free handyman stopped showing up. And I laughed because she was right, but it also stung because she was right. Then one Sunday in July, I was at the farmer's market with Hattie, buying tomatoes and pretending to understand which ones were heirloom when my phone rang. It was Aunt Lorraine. She said, Darcy, honey, what is going on between you and your daddy? I told her. The whole thing. The guitar. The trash. The Facebook post. All of it. And Aunt Lorraine, who has never been subtle about anything in her 67 years of life, said, that man has lost his ever-loving mind. She told me she was going to talk to him. I said, Lorraine, please don't. She said, baby, I'm not asking permission. Now I don't know exactly what Lorraine said to my dad. She won't tell me to this day. But whatever it was, it detonated something inside that man. Because about a week later, I got a text from my dad that was longer than anything he'd ever written in his life. It started with, Darcy, I need to talk to you. And what happened after that conversation, what he said, what I said back, and what finally broke open between us, I'll tell you about that very soon. Because the truth is, I wasn't sure I was ready to hear it. That text from my dad sat on my phone for 2 days before I answered. Hattie called me stubborn. I said I was being emotionally deliberate. She said that's just stubborn in a fancy dress. But for once, I needed him to wait the way I'd waited my whole life. Day 3 I texted, okay, talk. He called instantly. And for the first time in my adult life I heard my father crying. Not dramatic. Just this shaky, cracked voice. He said, Darcy, Lorraine told me what Phil found on the curb. I let him talk. He said he didn't remember putting it out. That Brooke must have moved it while tidying the garage. That he never meant for it to happen. I said, Dad, even if Brooke moved it, you put it in the garage first. You watched me open that case, heard me explain what I did and said, thanks, Darce, before going to pose with the Rolex. Silence. Then, I know. 2 words. Heavier than any excuse. I said, do you know what it's like reading best daughter a man could ask for on Facebook when you have 2 daughters? He said he didn't think about it like that. And I said, that's the problem. You never do. Not with me. We talked for an hour. He told me after Mom died he clung to Brooke because she was younger and he was terrified. He poured everything into making her feel safe. And he assumed I was fine because I never complained. Because I just kept showing up. He said, you were so strong, Darcy. I thought you didn't need me. That broke me. Because he was basically saying my reward for being reliable was being invisible. I said, strong people still need to be seen, Dad. I told him I loved him but I needed time. Because love without respect is just habit. Now Brooke. By late summer her whole Chicago life fell apart. Company eliminated her position. She moved back into Dad's spare bedroom. The same room where I used to fold his laundry every Sunday. She started doing everything I used to do. The faucet, the lawn, the groceries. She lasted 2 weeks before calling Aunt Lorraine in tears. How did Darcy do this every week? Lorraine, who has never filtered a thought in her life, said, she did it because she loved your father. And he couldn't even keep her gift out of the garbage. One Saturday in September Brooke texted, can I come over? He had never been to my apartment. Not once in 4 years. She showed up in jeans and a hoodie driving Dad's truck. Sat at my kitchen table and said, "Darcy, I owe you a real apology." She said, "I've been the favorite my whole life and never once thought about what that cost you. I liked being on that pedestal. I'm sorry." I didn't cry. I just felt something loosen in my chest that I'd been carrying so long it felt like part of me. I said, "I don't need you to feel bad about being loved. I just needed someone to notice I was standing right there." I showed her the guitar. She ran her fingers over the restored wood and said, "This is the most thoughtful thing I've ever seen anyone do." Coming from the woman whose Rolex got 243 likes. That meant everything. A few days later, Dad asked if he could come to my place. Not if I'd come to him. If he could come to me. He sat at my table and put a folded paper in front of me. A printout of a new Facebook post. An old photo. Him and me around 1998, the Gibson across both our laps. Caption. My daughter Darcy spent 2 months restoring this guitar for my 60th. She fixed every crack and gave it back better than new. And I failed her. Fancy watches tell time. But what Darcy gave me was timeless. I have 2 daughters. I'm proud of both. He said, "I didn't want to just post it. I wanted to hand it to you. Because you deserve things given in person with care. The way you give them." I hugged my dad. And he held me. Not a side hug. Not a pat. A real full I finally view hold. Thanksgiving. I brought the Gibson to his house. Brooke helped Lorraine in the kitchen. Hattie was there because she's basically family now. After dinner I sat on the porch and played Badly I Won't Pretend Otherwise, and Dad closed his eyes with that same goofy grin from when I was little. Brooke said, "This is better than a Rolex." Dad said, "Everything Darcy does is." Things aren't perfect. But now he calls on Wednesdays just to check in. Now when I visit on Sundays he meets me at the door. The guitar sits in his living room on a stand next to that old porch photo. He never wears the Rolex anymore. Beauty lies in simplicity. And if you're the one who always shows up while nobody notices, I see you. Sometimes people have to lose the quiet ones before they realize how loud the silence is. Good begets good. I believe that completely. That's my story. If you made it this far, thank you for listening. If you enjoyed it, a like really does help. And if something resonated or you've been through something similar, drop a comment. I read everyone. Thank you for watching.